When it comes to jerky, there isn't really a whole lot to dislike, but with flavor options like original, barbecue, and sweet and hot, I think it's fair to say that the choices aren't particularly exciting either. Let's do something about that. Hi everybody, I'm Graham. Now jerky's been around for hundreds of years and was first studied in the 1500s. First used as a method of preserving meats, jerky quickly became a high-protein, portable option that could be made with any lean meat, whatever was available, meaning alpaca, buffalo, elk, whatever. Now of course a lot has changed since the 1500s, and now jerky is primarily made with widely accepted and available beef, and sold in a variety of very generic flavors that have presumably market tested well with a very broad range of potential customers. Now while that may be great for business, the issue is that it's pretty boring, and honestly, way too expensive for what you actually get. Fortunately, jerky is actually extremely easy to make and doesn't really require any special equipment at all. Although if you do have a dehydrator, that will give you the best results because it's literally what it's made for. I don't, so I use my oven. Let me show you how to do it.
Before I start anything, let's talk meat. Ideally when making jerky, you want to make sure that you're using meat that doesn't have a whole lot of fat in it. The more fat there is in your meat, the more likely it is to mold, and the less time it's going to last. I'm using outside round for mine. It's a fairly cheap cut that you can get in pretty large chunks at the grocery store. It has very little fat in it, just a little bit around the outside, and you can kind of trim that off pretty easily. The first thing I'm going to do with it is just pat it dry real quick. This just makes it a little easier to handle. Then I'm just going to cut it up into a few pieces that are a little bit more manageable size, wrap it up, and stick it in the freezer. I like to put it in the freezer for about an hour before cutting it. This just makes it a little easier to slice thinly and consistently, which will help make sure that everything dehydrates evenly. And then while that's sitting in the freezer, I'll go ahead and start making my marinades. For this video I wanted to highlight that you can pretty much make jerky with just about any marinade, so I went ahead and found a few recipes on the internet for beef dishes that I wanted to jerkify. I'm not going to go too much into them. They're not my recipes, but I will leave some links down in the description if you want to go check them out. The three recipes I've chosen to use are Vietnamese beef, using a fish sauce and a little bit of lime. I chose this one especially because I wanted to see if the lime made the meat any tougher. The next one I chose was a Korean bulgogi. I chose this recipe because it uses Asian pear to help tenderize the meat, and I wanted to see if that affected the final dehydrated product. And last but certainly not least, I chose a recipe for beef barbacoa, and I chose this just because it sounded good. When my marinade is ready, I'll toss that in a bag and grab my firmed up meat from the freezer. Then I'll slice that about 1/8 of an inch thick. You can do this either with the grain, which will give your jerky a bit more chew and a bit more pull, or you can slice it against the grain for more tender jerky that pulls apart more easily. Then I'll toss my jerky in with my marinade and stick it in the fridge for anywhere from 1 hour to a day. When that's done marinating, I'll grab myself a baking sheet, put a wire rack on top, and I'll just lay my marinated meat out on the rack in a single layer. Then I'll set my oven to the absolute lowest temperature I can get to, then I'll toss that in, and we're just going to let it sit in there. About an hour later, I'll take it out, flip each piece of jerky to help it dehydrate evenly, and put it back in the oven until it's done. When your jerky's got just a little bit more moisture than you'd like it to have, take it out of the oven and set it somewhere to cool and finish drying out. When it's fully cooled, throw it in an airtight bag and enjoy the goodness of custom homemade jerky. Oh, and in case you were wondering, 2 out of the 3 flavors here worked out really well, the barbacoa and the bulgogi. The Asian pear didn't over-tenderize the meat in any way, but something about dehydrating beef, marinating fish sauce just didn't come out right.
That's all I got for this one. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and of course, leave me a comment down below. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.